I never would have found it if she hadn't left her purse on the kitchen counter. Jessica was careful. Always careful. The kind of woman who double-checked locked doors and kept her passwords memorized instead of written down. But that morning, as she rushed out the door, she had left it sitting there, wide open. And the hotel receipt was right on top. I didn't mean to look. At least, that's what I told myself later. But my eyes had landed on the slip of paper, the name of the hotel printed in bold at the top, and curiosity had gotten the better of me. Grand Crest Hotel guest name, Lauren Simmons. I frowned. Jessica had never mentioned a Lauren Simmons. And she sure as hell had never mentioned staying at a hotel. I stared at the receipt, my heart picking up speed. The date was recent, just 3 nights ago. A single occupancy room, paid in cash. Cash. Jessica never used cash. A sick feeling settled in my stomach. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe she had booked it for a friend. Maybe it was a surprise for me, some elaborate anniversary thing she had forgotten to mention. But deep down, I already knew. I had known something was off for weeks. The late nights. The hushed phone calls. The sudden business trips that didn't add up. I had ignored the signs, convinced myself it was nothing. But now I had proof. I grabbed my keys and walked out the door. I was going to the hotel. And I was going to find out who the hell Lauren Simmons really was. The Grand Crest Hotel was one of those sleek, high-end places downtown, the kind where businessmen held affairs and no one asked questions. I walked in, trying to act like I belonged, even though my pulse was hammering in my ears. The receptionist barely glanced at me as I approached the desk. "Checking in?" "No," I said, forcing my voice to stay calm. "I just need to confirm a reservation for a friend." She barely blinked. "Name?" I hesitated. "Lauren Simmons." The receptionist clicked a few keys on her computer, then nodded. "Yes, she checked in 2 nights ago." My stomach dropped. "Is she still here?" I asked, gripping the counter. The woman's expression shifted slightly. "I'm sorry, sir. We can't give out guest information." I exhaled slowly. "I just need to know if she's still in her room." She hesitated, then glanced at the screen again. "She checked out this morning." I clenched my fists. Jessica, Lauren, was already gone. And I was too late. I stood in the parking lot, my hands shaking. She had been here. Just last night. Sleeping in a hotel under a fake name, living a life I knew nothing about. I pulled out my phone, my mind racing. I could call her. Confront her. Demand answers. But something stopped me. The alias. The fact that she had checked in under a different name meant this wasn't just an affair. It was something bigger. Something worse. I needed more information. So instead of calling her, I went back inside. And I waited. For nearly an hour, I sat in the hotel lounge, nursing a drink I didn't want, my eyes on the front desk. I told myself it was stupid. That I was being paranoid. Then, a man walked up to the receptionist. "Excuse me," he said. "I'm supposed to meet my wife here, but I think she already checked out." "Lauren Simmons?" My entire body went rigid. I turned, my pulse thundering. The man was tall, well-dressed, early 40s. He looked polished, expensive suit, gold watch, the kind of confidence that came from money. My mouth went dry. He had just called her his wife. The receptionist smiled politely. "Yes, she checked out earlier this morning." The man sighed. "She must have left early." "Thanks." He turned and walked toward the exit. I was on my feet before I could think. I followed him outside, my heart pounding, every step feeling surreal. "Hey!" I called. The man turned, surprised. "Can I help you?" I swallowed. "Did you just say your wife's name is Lauren Simmons?" He frowned. "Yes." "Why?" I hesitated, my throat dry. "Because she's my wife too." His expression flickered, confusion first, then something colder. "Excuse me?" I clenched my jaw. "My wife's name is Jessica." But according to this hotel, she checked in under Lauren Simmons. His jaw tightened. That's not possible. I pulled out my phone and showed him the receipt. His face drained of color. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then he exhaled sharply, shaking his head. No. No, that's not right. Lauren and I have been married for 3 years. We live in Chicago. My stomach twisted. Jessica and I had been married for 5. I took a slow step back, my mind spinning. Are you telling me? The man nodded grimly. Looks like we've both been lied to. My breath came in short bursts. Jessica wasn't just cheating. She had a second husband. A second life. The air around me felt too thick, too heavy. I had come here expecting to find my wife in bed with another man. Instead, I had uncovered something much worse. And suddenly, I wasn't sure if I even knew the woman I had married. I stared at the man in front of me, my mind spinning. Jessica, Lauren, whatever the hell her name was, had been living a double life. Not just an affair. Not some sleazy fling in a hotel room. A whole other marriage. I forced myself to speak, though my throat was dry. What's your name? The man hesitated. David. David. The other husband. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to process. And you've been married for 3 years? David nodded. His hands were clenched at his sides, his jaw tight. We met in New York. She was a consultant. Traveled a lot for work. His eyes narrowed. Guess that was a lie too. I swallowed hard. We've been married for 5. I met her in Boston. She said she was in marketing. David let out a bitter laugh. Of course she did. We stood there, 2 strangers connected by one woman. A woman who had lied to both of us. A woman who had carefully constructed 2 different lives, 2 different identities, never expecting them to collide. I exhaled sharply. We need to find her. David crossed his arms. And do what? I clenched my jaw. Get answers. Because right now, that was all I cared about. I needed to look my wife in the eyes and hear the truth from her own lips. Even if I wasn't sure I could handle it. David and I sat in a nearby coffee shop, either of us touching our drinks. I stared at my phone, debating whether to call her. David tapped his fingers against the table, watching me. She's going to run. I looked up. What? He nodded. Lauren, Jessica, whatever we call her, she's smart. She won't wait around once she realizes we've figured this out. He wasn't wrong. Jessica had always been cautious. Always planning 3 steps ahead. If she felt cornered, she'd disappear. And something told me this wasn't the first time she had done it. I took a deep breath. She left the hotel this morning. She's probably back at my place. David frowned. Or mine. My grip tightened on the phone. Jessica couldn't be in 2 places at once. So which husband had she gone home to? I stood up. I'm going to my house. David nodded slowly. And if she's not there? I clenched my jaw. Then we find her before she vanishes for good. The drive home felt endless. My hands were tight on the wheel, my mind racing. I tried to remember every conversation, every moment that suddenly felt like a lie. Had she been planning to leave me all along? Or had I just caught her before she could? I pulled into the driveway, my pulse hammering. Jessica's car was there. She had come home. I stepped out of the car, my legs feeling unsteady. Then I took a breath, steadying myself, before unlocking the door. Jessica was in the kitchen. She turned when she heard me come in, her face lighting up. Hey, you're home early, she said with a smile, as if nothing was wrong. As if she wasn't living a second life. As if she wasn't Lauren Simmons. I stared at her, trying to find the words. She must have seen something in my expression because her smile faltered. Liam? I swallowed. I know. Her brows furrowed. Know what? I took a step closer, my voice low. I know about the hotel. About Lauren Simmons. About David. The color drained from her face. For the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. She took a slow breath, setting down the knife she had been holding. Liam, I can explain. Then start talking. I snapped. Silence. Then she exhaled, her shoulders sinking slightly. How much do you know? She asked quietly. I clenched my fists. Enough to know you're not who you said you were. Jessica, Lauren, nodded slowly, as if accepting the truth. Then, she gave me a small, almost sad smile. Then you also know I can't let this go on. A chill ran down my spine. I took a step back. What does that mean? Her eyes darkened. It means I have a plane to catch. Jessica's words hung between us, sharp as a blade. I have a plane to catch. She wasn't panicked. Wasn't scrambling for an excuse. She had expected this. I took a slow step forward, my pulse hammering. So that's it? You're just going to run? Jessica, Lauren, whoever the hell she really was, tilted her head slightly, studying me. I don't have a choice. My jaw clenched. Like hell you don't. Her lips twitched into something that wasn't quite a smile. You think you can stop me? The confidence in her voice sent a chill through me. Because she wasn't afraid. She had played this game before. And now that she had been caught, she was already 5 moves ahead. I exhaled sharply. How long were you planning on keeping this up? Jessica folded her arms, leaning against the counter like we were discussing something as trivial as dinner plans. Honestly? She shrugged. Not much longer. I was going to leave soon. A bitter laugh escaped me. And what? Just disappear? Leave me wondering what the hell happened to my wife? Her expression softened slightly. It would have been easier that way. I stared at her, disgust twisting in my gut. For who? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to process everything. Does David know? Jessica's face darkened. He does now. Her voice was quiet. Almost regretful. Jesus Christ! I muttered. How many other men have there been? She hesitated. And that was all the answer I needed. I exhaled sharply. What the hell is this, Jessica? Some long con? A way to scam rich idiots out of their money? She sighed, rubbing her temples. Liam. No. I snapped. Tell me the truth. Right now. Jessica studied me for a long moment. Then, finally, she spoke. You weren't supposed to find out. She murmured. Neither of you were. The weight of her words settled deep in my chest. Either of us. David and I weren't the only victims. We were just the only ones who had caught her. My blood ran cold. So this is what you do? Pretend to fall in love, get married, drain their bank accounts, then disappear? Jessica's jaw tightened. It's not that simple. I barked out a laugh. Like hell it isn't. She exhaled slowly, crossing her arms. You have no idea what you're talking about. Then make me understand. I snapped. Her gaze flickered to the clock. She was stalling. Because in her mind, this conversation was already over. She was leaving. No matter what I said. No matter what I did. My stomach twisted. Was any of it real? For the first time, something flickered in her eyes. Guilt. Regret. And for a moment, I thought she might actually tell me the truth. But then, just as quickly, the mask slipped back into place. It doesn't matter, she said softly. I clenched my fists. It matters to me. Jessica looked away. And that was when I knew. She had loved me. At some point, in some version of this lie. She had loved me. But not enough. Never enough. I swallowed the lump in my throat, forcing my voice to stay steady. Where are you going? Jessica exhaled slowly. You don't want to know. Tell me anyway. She hesitated. Then, finally, she answered. Cancun. For now. Cancun. Not forever. Just her next stop. Her next life. I nodded slowly, my mind racing. You're going to disappear, I said. Just like that. Jessica's expression was unreadable. It's what I do. I clenched my jaw. Not this time. Before she could react, I grabbed her wrist. Her eyes widened. Liam! Sit down! For the first time since this conversation started, I saw it. Fear. Because she wasn't in control anymore. I pulled out my phone, my hands steady despite the storm raging inside me. Jessica's breath hitched. Liam, she said carefully. What are you doing? I stared at her. Then, slowly, I pressed record. Tell me everything, I said. From the beginning. Jessica's face paled. She knew what this meant. She had run from a lot of things. But now, for the first time, she had nowhere left to go. Jessica's wrist tensed in my grip, her pulse fluttering beneath my fingers. For the first time since this all started, I saw fear in her eyes. Not the fear of being caught. The fear of losing control. My phone screen glowed between us, the recording icon blinking. Tell me everything, I repeated, my voice steady. From the beginning. Jessica's eyes flickered toward the door. Calculating. She was weighing her options. Fight. Lie. Run. But this time, she had nowhere to go. She exhaled slowly. Turn it off, Liam. Not a chance. She swallowed, her throat bobbing. Then, finally, she spoke. I was never supposed to stay this long, she murmured. My grip tightened. What does that mean? She sighed, shaking her head. You were supposed to be a 6-month con. A clean break. In, out, no complications. My chest tightened. So our entire marriage was a scam? Jessica flinched. And that hesitation, that tiny hesitation, made me want to throw up. Because it meant part of her didn't want to say it. Because it meant part of her had loved me. Or at least, she had wanted to. I clenched my jaw. Keep talking. Jessica hesitated for a moment longer, then looked down at the floor. It started in Miami, she said quietly. 5 years ago. I had just finished a job. I was looking for the next one. My stomach twisted. And I was the next one? She nodded, pressing her lips together. I was supposed to marry you. Empty the accounts. Disappear. I forced out a bitter laugh. And let me guess. David was next? Jessica shook her head. No. David was different. I frowned. How? She hesitated. Then, her voice dropped lower. David was supposed to be my exit plan. I stared at her. She exhaled, rubbing her temples. You have to understand, Liam. I was done. This life, this game, it exhausts you. I wanted out. David had the kind of money that would let me disappear forever. Start fresh. No more running. Her gaze flickered back to me. And then you ruined everything. A cold chill ran through me. I tightened my grip on my phone. How the hell did I ruin anything? Jessica let out a hollow laugh. Because I actually fell for you, Liam. The words hit me like a gut punch. She shook her head, looking away. That wasn't supposed to happen. But it did. And it complicated things. I scoffed. Complicated? She met my eyes again, and this time, the mask slipped just a little. It made me hesitate, she admitted. I kept delaying the final step. Kept telling myself one more month, just one more. And then suddenly, 2 years had passed, and I still hadn't done it. Her hands curled into fists. So I made a choice. I decided to disappear anyway. But instead of running with the money, I started over. I met David. He was safe. Stable. And I told myself this time, I'll do it right. No cons. No lies. Just a fresh start. I stared at her in disbelief. But you couldn't let go, could you? I whispered. She swallowed hard. No, she admitted. I couldn't. I exhaled sharply, my mind spinning. I had spent 5 years loving a woman who never really existed. A woman who had planned to use me, discard me, then move on. But she hadn't. Because some part of her, no matter how small, had wanted to stay. Had wanted me. I clenched my jaw. And now what? Jessica's eyes darkened. No, she said quietly. I disappear for good. I tightened my grip on her wrist. Like hell you do. Her lips twitched slightly. You can't stop me, Liam. You really think I'm just going to let you walk away? I gestured to my phone. I have everything I need. A confession. The truth. I could take this to the police right now. Jessica's expression didn't change. She just exhaled slowly and said, Check your email. My stomach dropped. I hesitated, then pulled my phone away from her, stopping the recording and opening my inbox. A single new message. No subject. No sender. I clicked on it. And then, my blood ran cold. Attached to the email were documents. Bank records. Wire transfers. A forged signature. My signature. Jessica leaned back against the counter, watching as realization dawned on my face. See, Liam, she murmured. I always plan ahead. I forced myself to breathe, scanning the documents. Fraudulent accounts. Offshore transfers. Transactions linking me to tens of thousands of stolen dollars. Jessica had been planning this for a long time. And now, she wasn't just leaving. She was pinning it all on me. I looked up at her, my hands shaking. You set me up. She gave me a small, almost pitying smile. I told you, she whispered. You were never supposed to find out. A heavy silence settled between us. My pulse pounded in my ears. I could take this to the cops, but what good would that do? These documents would make me the criminal. No one would believe I was the victim. Jessica had made sure of that. I clenched my fists, my breath shallow. She had stolen my life. My love. My future. And now, she was walking away, free and clear. Unless... I tightened my grip on my phone, swallowing hard. There was one thing she hadn't planned for. Me. I exhaled slowly. Then I looked her in the eye and said, You're not going anywhere. Jessica's smirk faltered. For the first time, she was the one who looked unsure. And that? That was the first move I had won. Jessica didn't move. For the first time since this all started, I had knocked her off balance. She wasn't smirking. She wasn't spitting out another clever lie. She was staring at me. Waiting. Calculating. I gripped my phone tightly, my heart pounding. You think you can just disappear? Leave me to take the fall? Her expression didn't change. I don't think I can, Liam. I know I can. A cold shiver ran down my spine. Because she was right. Jessica, Lauren, whoever the hell she really was, had already won. She had spent years building this escape plan, preparing for this exact moment. She had the money. The fake identities. The forged documents that would paint me as the criminal. And now, she was seconds away from walking out that door and leaving me behind to clean up her mess. Unless I stopped her. I exhaled slowly, forcing my voice to stay calm. All right, I murmured. You win. Jessica blinked. For the briefest second, surprise flickered across her face. I stepped back, holding up my hands. If you want to go, go. I won't stop you. She hesitated. Really? I nodded. Really? Jessica studied me, searching for a trick. A trap. I gave her nothing. She inhaled deeply, then exhaled, her body relaxing. Good, she murmured. Then, she turned toward the door. That was her mistake. The moment her back was turned, I moved. I grabbed her wrist, harder this time, yanking her back before she could take another step. Jessica gasped, stumbling slightly. Liam! I spun her around, forcing her to face me. You don't get to walk away from this. Her eyes flashed. Let me go. Not a chance. She struggled, but I didn't loosen my grip. Jessica had spent years conning people, manipulating them, slipping away before they could catch her. But not this time. Not with me. Her breath came in short bursts, her eyes darting toward the phone still clutched in my hand. "You have nothing, Liam," she hissed. "The police won't believe you. The evidence is against you." I made sure of that. I exhaled slowly. Then I smirked. Jessica's face darkened. "What?" I lifted my phone and tapped the screen. Then I turned it around so she could see. Live recording. Jessica's body went rigid. My pulse thundered as I spoke. "See, you did plan ahead. But so did I." She swallowed hard. I leaned in slightly, my voice lowering. "You just admitted to everything. How you planned to run. How you set me up. How you've done this before." Her lips parted slightly, shock flickering across her face. Then, just as quickly, she masked it. She let out a small, breathless laugh. "You're bluffing." I tilted my head. "Am I?" Jessica's jaw tightened. I could see the gears turning in her mind, trying to figure out how to fix this. How to slip out of it the same way she had slipped out of 100 other lies. But there was no way out. Not this time. Her voice was softer now, almost coaxing. "Liam, listen to me." "No," I cut in. "You listen." I lifted my phone higher, letting her see the numbers climbing on the recording timer. "I send this to the police, and you're done. No more running. No more disappearing. No more fake names." Her breath hitched. "You think they won't find you?" I continued, stepping closer. "You think you can just vanish like you always do?" Jessica blinked rapidly, her composure slipping. She was scared. And for the first time, I felt something close to satisfaction. Because I had beaten her at her own game. I let my voice drop lower. "You always plan ahead, Jessica." I smirked. "But this time, you didn't plan for me." Silence. Thick. Heavy. Then, Jessica did something that almost made me doubt everything. She laughed. Not the sharp, smug laugh she had given me before. This one was softer. More resigned. She shook her head slightly, a sad smile playing on her lips. "Damn," she murmured. "I really thought I could pull this off." I clenched my jaw. "Guess you finally met your match." Jessica exhaled, nodding slowly. "Looks like it." She stepped back, her eyes still locked onto mine. Then, her expression shifted. Something dark flickered behind her gaze. And before I could react, she moved. Jessica lunged. I stumbled backward, barely dodging as she reached for my phone. She wasn't done. She was still fighting. I grabbed her wrist again, twisting away, but she was fast. Her knee came up, slamming into my stomach. Pain shot through me, and I lost my grip. My phone slipped from my fingers. And Jessica dived for it. I moved on instinct. I tackled her. We hit the floor hard, the phone skidding across the tiles. Jessica clawed at me, scrambling to get free. I grabbed her arms, pinning her wrists down. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, her hair wild around her face. We were both breathing hard. Then she stilled. For a long moment neither of us moved. Then, softly, she whispered, "What now, Liam?" I swallowed hard. Because I didn't know. I had caught her. I had trapped her. But what was the endgame? Turn her in? Watch the woman I had loved go to prison? Or let her go and live with the knowledge that she would do this again? Jessica tilted her head, her lips curling slightly. "You're not a killer," she murmured. "And you don't have it in you to ruin me." She was testing me. Waiting to see if I would blink first. I tightened my grip on her wrists. "You don't know what I have in me." Jessica smiled. "I know you, Liam." Her voice was soft. "Dangerous." "You're still in love with me." My breath caught. Because part of me, a sick, stupid part of me, knew she was right. But love wasn't enough anymore. Not after this. I leaned in slightly, my voice just above a whisper. "Not anymore." Her smile faltered. For the first time, it was her turn to break. And that? That was my final move. Checkmate. Jessica lay beneath me, wrists pinned, chest rising and falling in sharp bursts. For the first time, she wasn't smirking. She wasn't spinning another lie. She wasn't running. She was trapped. And she hated it. Her eyes flickered between mine, searching for something, an opening, a weakness, anything she could use to turn this around. But I didn't give her one. Her voice was soft, coaxing. "Liam, let me up." I shook my head. "Not until we finish this." Jessica exhaled slowly. "Then finish it." The challenge in her voice sent a shiver down my spine. Because she wasn't just talking about this fight. She was asking me to decide. Would I turn her in? Watch her go to prison? Or would I let her go, knowing she would disappear into another life, another name, another scam? I swallowed hard. "I don't trust you." Her lips twitched slightly. "Good. You shouldn't." The honesty in her voice rattled me more than the lies ever had. I let go of one of her wrists, reaching for my phone where it had skidded across the floor. Jessica didn't move. Not yet. She just watched me, her body coiled like a spring. She was waiting. Waiting for her chance. I grabbed the phone, my fingers hovering over the screen. The recording was still running. Proof. Of everything. I could send it to the police right now. One tap. One decision. And Jessica Carter, Lauren Simmons, whatever the hell her real name was, would finally face the consequences. My breath came in short, shallow bursts. "You don't want to do this," Jessica murmured. I exhaled sharply. "You don't get to tell me what I want." She tilted her head slightly. "Maybe not. But I know you, Liam." Her voice was too calm. Too controlled. "You think you're different," she continued, her eyes locked onto mine. "That you can win. That you can make me pay." A small, sad smile tugged at her lips. "But deep down, you don't want to hurt me." I clenched my jaw. Because she was right. And she knew it. Jessica exhaled softly. "Liam, if you send that, you'll never see me again." My stomach twisted. That was the point. That was what I wanted. Wasn't it? I tightened my grip on the phone, my thumb hovering over the send button. Jessica didn't break eye contact. Then, she moved. Fast. Her knees slammed into my stomach, knocking the air from my lungs. I gasped, doubling over. Jessica twisted free, shoving me back, her breath ragged. Then she ran. I lunged, grabbing her wrist again, yanking her back. But this time, she was ready. Her elbow drove into my ribs, sharp and brutal. Pain exploded through me. I stumbled, and Jessica sprinted for the door. My phone slipped from my fingers. And I knew. If she got outside, I would never see her again. Adrenaline surged through me. I forced myself forward, slamming into her just as she reached for the handle. We crashed into the door, hard. Jessica twisted, shoving against my chest, her breath coming fast and uneven. I pinned her again, pressing her back against the wood. Her pulse hammered beneath my grip. Her chest rose and fell quickly, eyes wide. For the first time, she looked desperate. I had never seen Jessica Carter desperate before. "Liam," she panted. "Let me go." I shook my head. "No more running." Jessica's lips parted slightly. Then, for the first time since I met her, she broke. Her body sagged slightly, her resistance faltering. And she whispered, "Please." The word hit me like a freight train. Because I didn't know if it was another lie. Or if, for the first time, Jessica Carter was telling the truth. My hands trembled against her wrists. She swallowed hard, her voice barely audible. "You don't understand. If you send that recording, it's over." I exhaled. "That's the idea." She shook her head, her eyes glistening. "Not just for me. For you." A chill ran through me. "What the hell are you talking about?" Jessica let out a shuddering breath. Then she whispered, "They'll come for you too." My blood turned to ice. I stepped back slightly, my grip on her loosening. "Who?" Jessica hesitated. And in that second, I saw something raw in her expression. Fear. Real. Genuine. Jessica Carter wasn't afraid of getting caught. She was afraid of something bigger. Jessica, I said slowly. Who's coming? She licked her lips, her breathing shaky. Then, she slammed her forehead into mine. Pain exploded through my skull. I stumbled back, vision blurring. By the time I regained focus, Jessica was gone. The front door swung open. Her footsteps faded into the night. I ran after her, my heart hammering, but she had vanished. Gone, just like that. I stood there, gasping for breath, my hands shaking. My mind racing. Jessica had won. Again. But this time, she had left something behind. A warning. They'll come for you too. I turned back to the house, my stomach twisting. My phone still lay on the floor, screen cracked but still recording. Jessica had given me just enough truth to keep me guessing. Just enough to make me wonder. Had I just saved myself? Or had I just made the worst mistake of my life? Because for the first time since this all started, I wasn't sure of who the real enemy was anymore. Jessica was gone. The door stood wide open, the night swallowing her whole. No footsteps. No lingering shadow. Just empty space where my wife, or whatever she had been, had stood moments before. I pressed a hand against my throbbing forehead, still reeling from the headbutt. I had her. I had her. And she still slipped away. My gaze drifted to my phone lying on the floor, the screen cracked but still glowing. The recording was still running. Her confession. The proof of everything. And yet, all I could hear was her last warning echoing in my skull. They'll come for you too. Who the hell was they? My breath came fast and uneven. I forced myself to move, to lock the door, to double-check the windows. I knew it was useless. If someone wanted to come for me, a locked door wouldn't stop them. But I did it anyway. Because for the first time since this nightmare started, I wasn't just angry. I was afraid. I stayed up all night, phone clutched in my hand, staring at the recording. I could send it to the police right now. Jessica had disappeared, but this would end it. No more lies. No more running. The truth, out in the open. And yet, I hesitated. Not because I didn't want justice, but because Jessica had never looked scared before. Not when I found out about her fake marriage to David. Not when I confronted her. Not even when she realized I had proof of her crimes. But the second I threatened to send the recording, that's when she broke. Not for herself. For me. My fingers hovered over the screen. All I had to do was press send. And then my doorbell rang. A jolt of panic shot through me. I stood quickly, my pulse hammering. It was barely dawn. Nobody came to my house this early. Nobody uninvited. I moved to the door, keeping my footsteps silent. Another ring. Then a knock. 3 short, sharp raps against the wood. I swallowed hard, my mind racing. Was it Jessica? Had she come back? Or was this the day she warned me about? I peered through the peephole. A man stood on my doorstep. Mid-40s. Tall. Well-dressed, in a sharp black suit that looked too polished for this neighborhood. Not a cop. Not someone I recognized. He wasn't impatient. He wasn't nervous. He was waiting. I clenched my jaw, debating my options. Then he spoke. "Mr. Callahan," he said smoothly. "We need to talk." I stiffened. He knew my name. I forced my voice to stay calm. "Who are you?" A small smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "Let's just say, I work with your wife." Cold fear trickled down my spine. I didn't open the door. "Jessica isn't here," I said. "I know," the man replied. "That's why I'm here for you." My breath hitched. The way he said it, calm, controlled, sent alarm bells ringing in my head. I needed to get out of here. I didn't know who this man was. But I knew exactly what he wanted. Jessica had disappeared. And now, they needed someone else to take her place. I backed away from the door slowly, my mind racing. The man outside didn't move. "Come on, Liam," he called out. "Let's not make this difficult." I didn't answer. I turned and ran. Straight out the back door, across the yard, my heart slamming against my ribs. I had no plan. No idea where I was going. All I knew was that if I stayed, I was done. I didn't stop running until I hit the gas station 3 blocks away. Sweat dripped down my face as I leaned against the wall, struggling to catch my breath. I needed a second. Just 1 second to think. I pulled out my phone. The recording. The only thing I had left. I opened my messages, my fingers shaking, ready to send it. Then, a new text came through. "Unknown number. That won't help you now, Liam." I froze. My stomach twisted violently as I stared at the screen. They knew. They already knew about the recording. And they weren't worried. Because whatever I thought I had, it wasn't enough. I swallowed hard. Another text. "Unknown number, we should meet." I looked around, suddenly feeling exposed. Every car, every shadow, every person felt like a set of eyes watching me. I typed quickly. "Me, who is this?" A pause. Then, "Unknown number, the only person who can save you now." I exhaled shakily. Jessica's last words echoed in my head. "They'll come for you too." She had been telling the truth. And now? I was next. I stood outside the gas station, my breath coming fast and shallow, staring at my phone screen. "Unknown number, the only person who can save you now." A slow, sickening realization settled in my gut. This wasn't just about Jessica anymore. This was bigger. She had been playing a game, but I had never been the opponent. I had been the pawn. And now? The game wasn't over. Not for me. I swallowed hard and typed back. "Me where?" The reply came instantly. "Unknown number, room 615. Grand Crest Hotel. 1 hour." My stomach twisted. The same hotel Jessica had checked into under her fake name. I glanced around the empty street, my pulse hammering. I didn't have a choice. Whoever these people were, they had already found me. Running wouldn't change that. I had one shot. So I took it. I called a cab. And I went to meet the devil. The elevator ride to the 6th floor was suffocating. I kept my fists clenched at my sides, my mind running through every possible outcome. I could be walking into a trap. Hell, I was walking into a trap. But if I didn't, they'd find another way to make me play their game. I stepped into the hallway. I took a slow breath. Then I knocked. A few seconds later, the door unlocked. And the man from my doorstep, the one in the expensive suit, stood on the other side. He smiled. "Mr. Callahan?" I didn't move. "Who are you?" He stepped aside, motioning for me to enter. "Let's talk." I hesitated. Then I walked inside. The hotel room was sleek, minimal. The kind of place where secrets were exchanged. I spotted 2 glasses of whiskey on the table. One already poured for me. The man closed the door and gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit." I didn't. "I want answers," I said, my voice steady. The man smirked. "Then sit." I clenched my jaw. Then, slowly, I sat down. The man took a sip of his drink, watching me carefully. "You must have a lot of questions." I exhaled sharply. "You think?" He chuckled. "All right, let's start with the obvious." He leaned forward. "Jessica Carter wasn't just a con artist. She was an investment." A chill ran down my spine. "Investment?" The man nodded. "We backed her. Set her up. She found the right targets, men with money, connections, power. She played the part. Got in deep. And when the time was right?" He smiled. "She cashed out." My pulse pounded. "You funded her?" I asked, disbelief thick in my voice. "She was one of our best." He swirled the whiskey in his glass. Until she went rogue. I stared at him. What do you mean, rogue? His expression darkened. She stopped playing by the rules. Something about the way he said it sent a shiver through me. Jessica had warned me. She hadn't run from me. She had run from them. I swallowed hard. And what does this have to do with me? The man smirked. You were supposed to be just another mark, Liam. But you got too close. And now? He tilted his head. You're a liability. Cold fear slithered down my spine. I forced my expression to stay neutral. So what now? You kill me? The man chuckled. No. That would be messy. He reached into his pocket and slid something across the table. An envelope. I hesitated before picking it up. Inside was a passport. A plane ticket. A new identity. I frowned. What the hell is this? The man took another slow sip of his drink. A way out. My chest tightened. He leaned forward. Jessica's gone, Liam. She knows we won't let her disappear. She'll keep running. That's her problem. He gestured to the envelope. But you? You get a choice. I clenched my jaw. What choice? The man smiled. You walk away. New name. New life. Forget everything. His eyes darkened. Or you end up like Jessica. A heavy silence stretched between us. I forced myself to breathe. To think. Jessica had tried to warn me. They'll come for you too. And now they had. I could disappear. Become someone else. Or I could refuse. And they would make me disappear their way. My heart pounded. This wasn't my game. It had never been. I exhaled slowly. Then I reached for the passport. The man smirked. Smart choice. I pocketed the envelope, my mind racing. I had one chance at this. One shot at surviving. And if Jessica had taught me anything, it was how to play a long game. I stood. The man studied me carefully, as if making sure I understood the stakes. I nodded once. We're done here. Then, without another word, I walked out of the hotel room. The flight left at dawn. One-way ticket. No checked bags. I sat in the terminal, gripping the passport. The name on it wasn't mine. It never would be. I thought about Jessica. Was she out there running? Was she watching the same sunrise from somewhere new? Maybe. Maybe not. All I knew was that this time, she wasn't the only one disappearing. And maybe, just maybe, I was finally free.